My name is Bear Davis, and you are listening to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
On Schreiber. Sidearm whip, scores!
Now in front, Fennell scores! Paul Rabel splits two and scores!
Kylie O'Miller showing off those shifty skills.
Kelly, not shy, bounces one home! What a start!
Welcome to Pro Lacrosse Talk, the voice of Pro Lacrosse. I'm Hutton, he's Adam. Together we're bringing you interviews with your favorite players and coaches, as well as news from all 4 professional lacrosse leagues.
Today we have Coach Bear Davis, former MLL champion-winning head coach of the Ohio Machine. Coach Davis, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So, Coach, let's discuss kind of your diverse coaching background. You've coached at pretty much every level, from youth and high school to college and the pros, and eventually even the Czech Republic and the World Games in 2002. In particular, your resume boasts starting new lacrosse programs like at Wheeling Jesuit and Robert Morris, as well as bringing kind of a winning culture to those programs, and then the Machine once you got to the pro ranks. We just want to talk about how you've been able to achieve so much success and what attracts you most about starting new programs.
Some great questions, and you know, for me it was more of a matter of situation. You know, like when I was in college, and Wilmington College had given me the opportunity to create a curriculum where I started a high school lacrosse program from scratch. You know, in a rural area with two actually of my peers at the college who helped me do it. So that was my first experience, really. And I was on my first team at Hilliard High School, the very first team. So really every experience I started off with lacrosse was building it from scratch. And I kind of had learned, you know, that, you know, how to do that and what pitfalls might be there. And, you know, I was very fortunate to have some incredible coaches in other sports growing up. So, you know, learning from them on how to create, you know, certain winning cultures and you know, some ingredients that went into that. So really kind of a perfect storm in learning how to start programs.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And then, you know, let's talk about, too, the unfortunate folding of the Ohio Machine in April. You know, you're not only the head coach, but also a full-time employee with the Machine. Walk us through that day when you got the call that the Machine organization would not be operating during the 2019 MLL season, and what was that experience like?
Well, you know, when the PLL started, you know, a lot of the players were disgruntled, and they found another avenue to play pro lacrosse. You know, you can start to see some things unravel, and you knew change was inevitable. And I you know, you hear rumblings. I think you always hear rumblings. You know, like you always hear something's going on, and
Sure.
Quite frankly, you know, if you sit there and listen to rumblings all the time, you're not focused at the things that you can't control. So, you know, it's good to be in the know, but it's also good to kind of block out some of the rumor mill and just put your head down and go to work. So,
Sure.
you know, in many regards, I felt like we were sustainable. You know, we were doing cutting edge things in the industry. You know, we had our own stadium contract.
Yeah.
We were operating out of the stadium. We were getting closer to being a year-round. You know, we were becoming a year-round entity, and not just 7 games or 8 games at home. You know, we were building other pieces to the club, and you know, we had a great front office. And you know, so we had a lot of things really that were, quite frankly, the model. You know, I felt like we were doing some things that everybody else started to mimic, and you know, our coaching convention, you know, was reaching 450 attendees. You know, just a lot of really cool stuff. And then you start hearing, you know, like, you know, it was, you know, I think it was on a Thursday or so, I got a call, and someone said, hey, you know, there's a good chance that, you know, 3 of the 4 teams, Jim Davis teams, will be folding, and Ohio will be one of them. Of course, I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
You know, like, not a chance, you know. And then you know, confirmation on Friday that that's going to happen, and then we're announcing it on Monday, and then half of our staff is handed their walking papers a week later. And a lot of those people were younger, you know, cutting their teeth kids that were working their tail off that moved here from out of the area. And, you know, it's just, it's disheartening, you know, like,
Sure.
You know, obviously it's my you know, it's my hometown as well. So, knowing that we're not going to have that platform to help grow the game was certainly disappointing as well.
Was there any impetus for that you could kind of talk about? Why those were the 3 teams that they decided to kind of cut short for right now?
I'm not sure that we were ever given a great answer.
Sure.
Mr. Davis is I can't be more grateful. I mean, because I wouldn't have had the opportunity without him.
Sure.
So, for me to question any decision that, I know what the net loss was, and for me to say, why someone shouldn't continue to lose money, I mean, that's kind of selfish,
Sure. Yeah, sure.
So I don't really know, but at the end of the day, they he has to make decisions and the league has to make decisions based off of what they feel is best for, their self-interest, and quite frankly, my self-interest isn't, Mr. Davis's self-interest, and I can't, I don't know. It's hard for me to speak upon that.
Sure.
But, if you look from, I would believe in some ways they might feel that Dallas was a better opportunity to either sell or some reason it could generate more revenue than the three that they dropped. I mean, I honestly, no one ever really gave us a great answer. That's sure. The unfortunate part. That's probably one of the most frustrating pieces too.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just not getting real clarity on it.
Let's kind of take a more positive route. Let's discuss kind of your time with the machine. You came on following the team's 2-12 season. You not only had winning seasons for 4 straight years after that, but took them to back-to-back championships, winning one in 2017. So what was it like to create a championship caliber team and eventually win it all?
Yeah, again, it was, I didn't know, I just moved down to Maryland and took on being the associate athletic director and head coach of Archbishop Spalding, which, which was an incredible opportunity for myself and my family to do. And then the time, the machine had just finished a 2-12 season, and then they were maybe like 1-5, 1-6 at the time. That I received a call from the president, former president at that time was John Algie, and I had met John through some other way, drafts and some other things when I was coaching at Robert Morris, and he knew I had a connection to Columbus, and he'd asked if I'd be willing to take over the team, and it was one of those things where I just moved, so I was trying to gather my bearings, and it took me some time to make that decision. I had to watch a lot of games just to kind of see if it would be a good fit for me, period, to coach. And I got back to him and said, I think it'd be a good challenge for me, and plus it'd give me an opportunity to, fly back home, and see some family here and there. And I think at that time, Tom Mariano had just, left Sacred Heart, and he's a good friend of mine. So I wanted to bring him in, someone I could trust and knew would do a great job. And, we put together a great staff, just built a real good staff, and then sat down, and I think John Algie was a great mind. He was a great GM mind, and taught us how to place value, on players, how to be a GM, quite frankly, how to assess talent, how to trade. And that was pieces that I didn't really know. And I would say between, Tommy, myself, Algie, really looking at what we had, assessing the talent that we had, and then what we needed, and then obviously having the first draft pick, and then having some conversations with Peter Baum and Kyle Harrison, and convincing that, Peter to come play in the league, and watching the STX and LXM, scenario play out. Like, a lot of things really kind of fell for us, but it also was a lot of hard work to make sure they fell for us.
Sure.
We had, we had some people helping us, with the drafts and doing the prospecting. I think we kind of, some people were doing some good jobs and some other teams doing that, but I mean, we were getting a lot of mileage out of the 4th, 6th round, and some trades and players out of the player pool. And, we had guys like Don Marzano who was, doing some research for us, and just building that foundation. And I felt like I said, just being a little bit analytical about the shot clock and doing some things a little bit differently from the analytics side. And when it all came together, we felt like, we're building a great locker room. I think we had some great guys that, we had some, Marcus Holman and Tom Shriver and, Peter Baum. I mean, you got some great talent to work with, Steele Stanwick. I mean, you can go on and on, Scotty Rogers and so on and so on. Just great personalities, great locker room. They bonded well. So perfect storm.
That's great. I mean, we talked to Steele and Tom, and, they both enjoyed their time in Ohio. But like you said, you mentioned you grew up in Ohio. You've lived there, coached in your home state with the Machine, and you're currently still involved with Central Ohio Youth Lacrosse. What has it been like seeing the growth of the game in your home state, and it's really become like somewhat of a hotbed in the last 10 years and had tremendous growth. So what has that been like?
Well, it's been awesome, really. I mean, for me to pick up my first stick, I think was 1988 or so. And we had our first state tournament, high school boys state tournament in '89. It wasn't sanctioned by the high school association, but it was like a coaches association. And I believe we had maybe 12 teams, and Worthington's like JV team was probably filling out the bracket as the 12th team. If I, I mean, we probably didn't even have a full 12 teams, to be honest with you. And I just had so much fun with it. We had so many good friends and good relationships and meeting guys from other schools. But now, you look, they had, it was like 120 some odd high schools playing, and my hometown had the first youth league probably around 93, 94, and we moved back here in 2015, and my son played in that youth league, and I started looking around, and it was kind of a little bit like the Wild West, they were trying to get the scheduling together, and teams were maybe playing by a couple different rules here and there, and there was one league that existed, but not everybody was in that league. And so I met with that league director, and I said, hey, how can the Machine support this, and how can we grow this, and how can we be a backbone? Because really youth is where, we need to focus if we're going to grow this properly. And so we did. I think we maybe 12 communities, and we're up to, this year we'll probably have 23 to 24 communities playing now. And we go, some of the areas that we have lacrosse would blow your mind. We're in the rural. We have teams now that are suburbs of the suburbs, and this year we'll have our first inner city teams participating. So it's real exciting.
That's awesome. And kind of going off that a little bit, talking about the youth side of things, what is something you think that Central Ohio Youth Lacrosse and others in areas like urban or rural can do to continue to grow? And maybe what's a hurdle you see the sport needs that you think the sport needs to overcome to continue to grow?
Yeah, today I had a great conversation actually with a youth director of a community over in Western PA. I still do a lot of work back there, and she was just talking about like, hey, we have a lot of dads that really want to help, but they just don't know, and we need coaches, and that's why we started our convention. Because, whether it was Robert Morris or wherever I was, I get calls all the time. Hey, do you know anybody that could coach a team? I was like, listen, no. They're not out there. It's like they're not out there. They don't really exist. You have who's going to coach your team probably. And we just need to do a better job of educating them. And early on I'd do clinics, and sometimes the coaches wouldn't even be there. Now, when I do a clinic, I make it mandatory that the coaches are there. Because it's like I love the phrase, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach him how to fish, he eats for a lifetime. I feel that's the same way with what we're doing. Like if we're not training trainers as we're doing clinics, then it's dead in the water as soon as we walk out the door.
Sure.
And so I think those are the biggest keys to growing anywhere, is that the experience, the first of all, affordability. I think you got to make it affordable.
Sure.
And now we all, the people in the industry, we have to make a living. I get it. sometimes I'm looking at a price point. I'm like, the rich get richer. Like this isn't. I always ask myself, is that price point growing the game?
Yeah.
Is someone new to the game going to spend? Now it depends on the clinic too, right? I mean, if you're talking about an elite level, that person gonna have a little different interest. But if you're doing a youth league, invested, whatever you're trying to get, sticks in hands, and then you look at the price point and it doesn't really match what that is. I mean, I have a fundamental issue with that, and I think it's got to be affordable, and we got to train trainers, and we need to certify referees. We need to make sure that parents understand that their coaches and their referees are doing their best.
Yeah.
and don't scare away the ones that have stepped up. You see a big movement on that, and I think that's as important as anything that we can do. So those are all. I mean, equipment accessibility. That's got to be there, and these are all things that we've focused on here in Ohio and trying to combat those things.
No, that's great. And we talk about growing the game all the time, but I think those are some practical ways that we can, again, like you said, lower the barrier of entry, because that's ultimately how you're going to grow the game, is at the youth level, and getting people, to be able to participate and not make, the cost associated with equipment and, these clinics an issue for them. But yeah, really great advice, I think, and some points you make. But let's talk about maybe the pro game, growing that on a macro level. You've obviously been behind the scenes with the MLL, and now you've got to watch, a summer as a spectator of the PLL. What are some things you think the MLL and PLL are each doing well, and what are areas you think they both need improvement?
Well, there's no question that the PLL pushed the MLL to be better in certain areas. And, I'm sure in some of those areas, the PLL can sit back and take credit for, why the MLL got better in some areas. But, it's hard to say. I mean, because you did get a new commissioner, and, maybe he had some of that stuff in mind. Maybe he didn't. Maybe some of that stuff did push his creativity a little bit, or the whole group in general. And that those things will probably go unanswered. However,
sure.
Nonetheless, it made there was competition breeds a better product, and the PLL had a solid 18 years of evaluation of a league to say that's not what we want. That's not an advantage necessarily maybe that the MLL had. And I think when you start a league, you can get caught in some certain ruts of not knowing how to get over certain hurdles. And I think that's maybe where the MLL got. It had to. We had the same commissioner for a long time who did a great job of stabilizing, making it, operate. But sometimes you got to take risk, and I'm not quite sure when you can survive year to year, how many risks you're willing to take. So, and I think that's probably why the owners got to where they were with, trying to say, hey, we need to, we need to do some things different. And sometimes you got to go backwards to go forwards. And it's been an interesting summer, though. I think some of the stuff has been great, like NBC's, obviously I think has been a standard, this summer and broadcast. I don't think that the ML's too, as far as you got some great broadcasters, you got knowledgeable broadcasters, but the graphics, the camera angles, and, just the overall package was just superior by the PLL, and that's, but, to also look at it and say, you have a whole digital network dedicated to the game of lacrosse. That's pretty powerful too. It might have been ahead of its time a little bit, and that's why it got knocked so much. Yeah. And maybe if it could have had a little better production, which I think they're getting closer to, Yeah. But to me, having an app on my TV that's nothing but lacrosse is pretty awesome. Absolutely. Unfortunately, it took a pretty big kick, just because of some of the production quality and some of the people, if you're dedicated to the game of lacrosse, your anchors, and which they have some great ones on there, but when you get one on there that can't pronounce guys' names and they don't really, they're going to get upset about that.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and and I think you hit the nail on the head too with the TV part, because I always talk about with people want to talk about attendance, and really it hasn't. It was great at the PLL championship, but from week to week, it wasn't like a drastic difference between leagues. But the biggest thing, like you said, is the broadcast, and that's how you're going to get net new fans. In the Midwest, in these areas that are not accustomed to lacrosse. If they're seeing it on NBC or NBC Sports, they're going to see what is this? Let me tune in. And if you have a first-class broadcast, you're going to automatically be able to attract them somewhat. So I think you hit the nail on the head with the TV part. But that really wraps up our main questions. Yeah, but we like to do a 5-and-5 segment where we ask you 5 lacrosse-related questions and then 5 life-related questions. It's supposed to be fun, kind of get to know you better. But we're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll get back into it. Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of the Pro Lacrosse Talk podcast. We've been using Anchor for our podcast since the very start. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place, and better yet, it's free. They allow you to easily record and edit your podcast so it sounds great and send it out to all the major networks such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. Better yet, they connect you with advertisers so you can start making money from your podcast right away. So if you're interested in starting a podcast, download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Today's show is being brought to you in part by Stitcher Premium. You can use Stitcher Premium to listen to shows ad-free such as Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, My Favorite Murder, Wolverine the Lost Trail, or our favorite, The Fantasy Footballers. For only $4.99 a month or $34.99 a year, you get access to Stitcher Originals, bonus episodes, and comedy albums. Better yet, if you go over to Stitcher.com/premium and use the promo code lacrosse today, you can get 1 month free. So head on over to Stitcher, sign up, and get your free trial today.
So we'll start off with the 5 lacrosse-related questions. So we'll start with number 1. And what's one thing that you think the Ohio Machine organization and yourself did really well, whether it's from kind of an operations standpoint or a fan engagement standpoint? You seem to be one of the most successful teams when it came to fan outreach and those types of things. So what's the most successful thing you guys think you did?
Whenever we sat down in a meeting, looking at our product from all angles, from a fan perspective, player, referee, college kid to a parent, like what is this, what does the Ohio Machine look like, and how can we cater to all those different segments, of people that have eyes on us. And I thought that was fun. I think that was one of my favorite parts, was that we could be something for everybody, really,
Right.
and how do we do that? How do we tackle that? And I think we were getting pretty close to that.
Awesome. This one's a little shorter, but it might be a little bit more difficult. What's been your favorite lacrosse memory thus far through your career or coaching and playing?
I would say, and the championship was pretty cool.
Sure. Yep.
I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty awesome. I've been runner-up several times, and been in the playoffs and been in a lot of things, but to actually hold the trophy and know that you were the best team that year, and knowing what all the work that goes into that, and knowing where that team was, when we took it over. I'd say that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Number 3. So when you are coaching, do you have any game day rituals or superstitions?
Oh, generally pregame coffee. That's definitely going to take place. You know what? I'm usually pretty chill on game day. I do have one. My clipboard. I manually do my clipboard. I chart plays.
Okay.
And probably for me, it's just been my way of getting dialed into the game. Probably 20, 25 minutes before the game, I'm generally drinking my coffee, and I literally put my lines in pen but with a ruler on
Nice.
there. I don't. That's just what I do.
That's great. So this one, I mean, you've had the opportunity to coach at a lot of different levels and places. So any particular lacrosse venue that's been your favorite to coach at?
So many cool places. Yeah. So many really cool places. Denver's pretty special. I mean, to walk out and a professional level stadium and be like that professional football stadium and Navy Marine Corps has so much incredible history to it. You just look at all the battles that are on the walls there, and you're like, wow, this is pretty crazy history here. I'd say those two have been, honestly, there's so many. I'd have to do a top 10 list, because I'd say even playing Gilman when I was coaching at Spalding, and the history of the kids sitting on the hill there, and still playing on old school grass, and that's such a unique environment. Really honestly, one of my favorite venues is the field I first played, varsity lacrosse on here in Hilliard. It sits in the middle of town, no high school. Our youth use it now, and my son got to play on it. And Memorial Field's where it all began for me. So that's probably got the coolest feel to it, especially when your kids get to play on it.
Yeah, it's a lot of meaning for sure. That's awesome.
That's great.
And then kind of lastly, who's someone in the lacrosse community that you admire or look up to, whether that's a coach, former player, opponent?
I'd say I got a ton of mentors. So many good people that had helped me along the way. But I'd say Double D. Daryl Delia is one of them who had been my assistant coach. It dates back to probably right around 1997, 96, 97. He was the assistant at Yale. And I was the head coach at Wilmington High School and just north of Cincinnati, and I was just a young punk then, and he I did a clinic with him, and him and I went and had dinner afterwards, and I think him being a big time Ivy League assistant, he could have not given me the time of day, and instead he opened up his arms and said, hey, here's a hardworking kid, and he helped me get into camps. He helped me learn, and I think I just learned a ton from him just on how to treat people.
Sure.
So that for me, that's why I love giving the game, because people like him who taught me that this is just such a good fraternity to be in.
Sure, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. So that kind of covers our lacrosse related questions, and then we like to ask some life ones off the field. So the first one I'll ask you do you have any hobbies or activities you enjoy doing when you're not coaching?
I have a 72 Volkswagen van.
Okay.
So I like to camp. I like to hang out, and I watch tailgate. I like to go to live events, live games, nice. And I enjoy those kind of experiences still, even though we got great high def TVs and all that. I still think that live events are pretty cool.
That's great. And then what's your favorite place to vacation?
Well, I'm a beach guy for sure. Love the beach. My wife and I love going to Hawaii. That's probably one of our favorite places. Yeah, I don't think there's we've traveled all over the world, but one of our favorite places is probably North Shore, watching the surfers, and that's probably doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Number 3, what is your favorite meal, and do you prefer to dine out, take out, or cook at home?
My favorite meal is whatever my wife cooks.
Okay,
great answer.
She's pretty good at surprising me, but I've been with her for 20 years, and I don't think there's ever been a dish that I've not liked. So I've been pretty fortunate. That was a prereq to marriage,
Yep.
And she hits home runs a lot there, but I'd say German food's also a big. I grew up in my mom's side was a German family, the Bauers. So I grew up in the Oktoberfest lifestyle. So the sausages and the pierogies and the kraut, like I look forward to October and grilling out all that stuff. And my wife grew up in the Ohio Valley where pierogies and all that stuff's a thing. So pretty lucky.
That's great. Now, who's a leader in a different sport or industry that you respect and you kind of try to emulate or that you modeled your coaching after?
I mean, all my high school coaches really, were probably my biggest influences. I mean, I was real fortunate to be under some or play for some of Ohio's like legendary coaches. So Ken Ash was my wrestling coach. I think his dual meet record when he retired was like 225 and 25 or something like that. And I think just having the confidence that he was able to build in high school kids and public school atmosphere where we compete against the private schools that recruited and everything was just still this day, I don't know how he did it. I mean, a lot of my coaching comes from that. And then, I played for a legendary high school football coach too, who was just very relentless, in pursuit of our goals and, did some really cool mind stuff with us, like as far as like training us to believe, in ourselves. So, like I said, I had a youth coach. It's a sixth grade football coach who, still to this day, I catch myself doing stuff that that he did. It kept it very, very simple. Like we did 6 plays, and those 6 plays were like we ran those for 2 hours. So we, like every team in the country could have known what was coming, but they could, just couldn't stop it. Those kind of people, and I think. Even that same coach, he was the kind of guy that, if a kid didn't have cleats, he made sure he got cleats, and like, so a lot of cool, influential, those other sports, people that helped me.
And now our final one we like to ask, and we usually get the best answers, I feel like, out of this one. What's a book on your bookshelf that you've read or are reading right now that you'd recommend to a colleague or a friend?
Yeah, so I'm reading Well Done, which is really intriguing. Just a different leadership style and relationship. It's really just based on how the trainers at SeaWorld trained Shamu. And, one thing that you get out of it is that you can't discipline a killer whale. I mean, you can't just get in there and like spank it, that's just not going to work. And it just teaches you how, building trust and, those kind of things, which I think it's just been an intriguing, different leadership style book. And I'm not quite done with it yet, but that's the one I've been reading. Probably one of the most influential books I would recommend anybody's Make the Impossible Possible by Bill Strickland. That's I think that's pretty impactful. If someone wants to see a vision that someone had and how they can impact the community, is pretty cool.
Awesome.
All right, well, that wraps up our 5 and 5 segment, but we usually like to end, Coach, on one question that we'll ask specifically of players and we'll ask specifically of coaches, but what is some advice that you would have for someone that's maybe just getting into coaching or, trying to turn around a season? What's any coaching advice that you'd have for somebody that's interested in getting involved?
I would say just continue to learn, that's probably the biggest key, because like you had mentioned, who are some of the coaches that you look at and admire, and you ask me that, like Coach Wolford, who was on my staff for, with the Ohio Machine. Coach Wolford was coaching at Worthington Kilbourne my senior year, and he was the Upper Arlington coach before that. So, I mean, this guy's been he's legendary, he's been around. Yeah. He's forgotten more lacrosse than I'll probably ever know. And anywhere we went, it didn't matter. Wherever we were, he was taking notes. You know, he was like, man, I really like that twist. I really like that drill. And just his sheer enthusiasm for, you know, wanting to learn and, you know, wanting to get better. And I think it's like the opposite when I hear, like, when we're doing our coaching convention and I hear these high school head coaches are like, yeah, maybe I'll send my JV staff. I'm like, what? Like, oh, I'm sorry. Did you just win a couple state championships? Did you got it all figured out already? I mean, you know. Meanwhile, here's, you know, Coach Wolford, who's Teddy Wolford from Upper Arlington's brother, who's Teddy will be there taking notes as well. You know, and it's like, this guy's won 19 state championships and he shows up and he's taking notes. Like, maybe that's the guy you should be emulating. And you know, so, yeah, I'd say just have that thirst to you know, to get better. And I'd say just make sure you keep in perspective that it's a game, you know, and you know, we talked about that a lot with the high machine and in our locker room is like, it's supposed to be fun. You know, whenever it's not fun for people, then it's no longer a game. You know, it's something else. And you know, I think what keeps me motivated is the fact that it's just, you know, I always keep that perspective that, you know, hey, this is a game. You know, like it's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be having fun here.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Coach, this has been great. We really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you either online or on social media?
Yeah, so I have, well, we have allohiolacrosse.com is all of our avenues, you know, through all the events that we're hosting there. And then my Twitter handle is @BarrySentLax. You know, I call it my random thoughts area. You know, whenever I'm thinking something, it usually goes on there, and whether people, you know, care or not, that's where it is.
Well, we've cared because, you know, that's kind of how we connected on Twitter. So, yeah, I think what you're doing is great, and I think, like I said, you provide a unique perspective because, you know, you don't really have any ties right now, and you know, you've been in the industry, and I think that's kind of unique and important to be sharing your opinion, you know, while we see the growth of professional lacrosse. So I'd say keep up the good work.
No, I appreciate it, and I try to stay neutral in that, and, you know, be a cheerleader for pro lacrosse, but at the same time, you know, if you deserve criticism, I'll throw it out there. You know, I'm not afraid. Yeah. So.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Coach. We appreciate it. Best of luck, and we'll be in touch.